Hi, I'm Megan, a former TV news producer turned freelance content creator. While searching for the elusive work-life balance, I realized I had built my life around my work when really it should be the other way around. So I clocked out of clocking in and decided to take on a workload that made sense for me and my family. Within my first year, I was able to spend priceless quality time with my girls while matching my full-time salary, leaving me content to create. Now, I want to share the lessons I've learned, the tools I've used, and more than anything, I want to share the people who have helped make this happen. I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is Rachel Walt. I think you'll love her just as much as I do. She is a compassionate and creative soul who really just knows how to fill your heart with all the wonderful things. I met her back in January and since then have had wonderful conversations with her, learning more about Reiki energy and human design. Rachel is the founder of Craftingood. She's the mom of three, a speech-language pathologist, meditation teacher, a Reiki Master, and she's obsessed with human design. I hope you enjoy this conversation just as much as I did and learn a thing or two. Welcome to the Content to Create podcast, Rachel. I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here.
So, like Sarah, who I spoke with in episode 2, I met Rachel at the Grab Life by the Goals Summit back in January. Rachel was there for a few different reasons, but I just had the most wonderful experience with Rachel learning about Reiki energy and the human design. I didn't know about either Reiki or human design when I first met Rachel. So she was my introduction to that. So welcome, Rachel. I'm excited to kind of talk through this. Will you tell us a little bit about what you do right now with Reiki energy and human design?
Yes. So thank you, Megan, for having me here. I'm so excited to have this conversation for your listeners. Thank you for sharing me with them. Yes, I'm Rachel. I'm the founder of Craftingood. This business started a few years ago as a subscription box company, really to give my family the tools to use their creativity to help others. So it was kindness crafts, nonprofits. And I really felt like, okay, we were creating systems of kindness in the family, in the community, across the world. But when I started having my personal kind of self-love, self-kindness transformation, I realized that was missing in the business. So I started receiving more self-care. I started prioritizing that in myself. I've been a meditator probably for almost 20 years now, but just really inconsistent. I've been doing yoga probably for 20 years, very inconsistently. But in 2020, like a lot of people, it kind of shifted my whole perspective. I'm also a speech language pathologist and was working in a hospital at that time. So my anxiety was just through the roof. And I poured myself into mindfulness and meditation. And then I started realizing all these benefits of how it's calming my anxiety, it's making me feel better, and it's helping me kind of live out the principles of kindness in the family a lot easier when I was taking care of myself. Obviously, but like people tell you to do self-care as a working mom and you're just like, yeah, cute, sure, I'll get to that. And you're like, not really, but it honestly works. And so when I started seeing the benefits of that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with people. This has to be a part of the core of the business. And so I started receiving Reiki and immediately could feel it in my body and could see the difference in my well-being, in my self-healing, in my coping strategies. And then I immediately thought, oh my gosh, I have to get trained in this. Initially just to do it for myself, because Reiki 1, when you do training, you can do it on yourself, self-Reiki. And then I thought, oh my gosh, now I have to share this with people and offer this as part of the business. So I continued on my training. I did Reiki 2 and now a Reiki Master for a little over a year. I've been a Reiki Master. And so in all this exploration, it really opened my eyes to this whole new world that I kind of knew and could feel, but didn't have language around. And that is the world of energy. And energy, when we're talking about that, we're talking about your emotions, your mindset, how you have dynamics with people in your relationships, in your spaces, even environments. You kind of just get the vibe. That's a very popular term in our culture right now, is like vibes, right? High vibes, low vibes. She's got the vibe, big vibes, but that is what it is. It's vibration. We're all bits of energy. We look solid, right? Our tables look solid, rocks look solid, we look solid, but we're actually, when you get at those very minute atomic parts of us, it's really just a lot of space with electrical energy going back and forth. And so we are all vibrating at different frequencies and levels. And what energy work does is tap into that part of us to help us emotionally regulate, to help us set our body up for self healing, to help us heal the past, even, and make goals in the future that reflect more of our true authenticity, kind of weeding through the daily life stuff that brings our vibe down. In that exploration, I found human design, which is a visual map of this energy and how it moves in your body. And so when I saw that, I'm a very visual learner, as my human design says, and I knew to be true. So I felt very validated, very seen, heard when I was exploring my human design. It made my marriage a lot smoother. It helped me with my parenting. It gave me so much self-compassion and appreciation and love for everyone else and their unique gifts and celebrating who they are. And so I'm able to give more compassion because I know that they're designed differently and they might just be dealing with something. So that's how I came to these tools and just have had such a wonderful experience personally using them and seeing just honestly like immediate results when I implemented some of these types of tools. I was like, I can't not offer these. It was
Right.
one of those. Yeah.
So, for someone that has no idea what Reiki is, let's walk
Yes.
them through what that looks like. Because if I say that word to someone, they have no idea. They may have no idea what it looks
Right.
like. When I received Reiki, it was at a conference. You were on
Yeah.
stage. Kind of walk us through that.
Right. So there's different ways that you can receive Reiki. You can do it distance, like even over Zoom, we could do Reiki because energy taps into things that are not bound by space and time. So they don't care that I am one place and my receiver of Reiki is in another place because, as you know, as you've seen a movie and you're watching a movie on a screen, I mean, those actors were playing parts months and months before, but they are tapping into your emotional body and your energetic body when you're having an emotional response to a movie. It's the same thing. So, Reiki is a Japanese energy balancing and healing technique that channels the Reiki practitioner really channels that connective energy that connects all of us, and it goes to places that you need it the most. And what it really travels to are different chakras, quote unquote, or energy centers in our bodies. So chakras meaning energy hubs. They go all along your spinal cord, really, starting at the base of your spine and having little hot spots all the way up. If your listeners are familiar with yoga is based on the principles of the Hindi chakra system, and Reiki follows those. Even though it's a Japanese technique, it really follows the Hindi chakra system and allows the connected energy to be channeled to bring balance and functioning to those energy centers. And what it does initially is tap into the most prominent energies you've got going on. So let's say you had a fight with your partner that morning and you come into a Reiki session 2 hours later. The Reiki will help some of that fresh kind of stress and icky energy going on. And then the more you get Reiki, the deeper it gets. And it can even help you with setting up physical healing in some of these spots where your chakras need balancing. So it's a really cool non-invasive technique. So, the Reiki goes where it needs to go. You don't have to worry about adverse reactions. It's very subtle. It's very soothing. It feels really great. It just sets up well-being, really.
And so I would compare it to, and tell me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
almost like a guided meditation, right?
Well, it's very similar to that because you're tapping into that type of energy, kind of
Okay.
spacious, all of
Hmm.
that. But you don't have to be in a meditative place to receive Reiki. I could send Reiki to somebody, running a marathon. Um, but when you are still and you're silent, you can feel some of the energies changing in the body while the Reiki is being given, even at a distance. I love pairing Reiki and meditation together because of that, because the recipients feel more of the energy changes and allows them to be freer and more open to receive the Reiki in a way that they will be able to see the difference too. So I like pairing. I'm also a meditation instructor, so I like to pair meditation and Reiki together. But they're not the same by any means. And what Reiki does is it uses your hands and it hovers. You can hover over these different chakra areas in the body, or you can put hands on. So in other traditions, you might call it like hands on healing, something like that. And we know, just in general, if you're thinking, gosh, this is so wacky, what is she talking about? The healing effect of a good hug from somebody, or just somebody putting their hand on your lap if you're feeling really upset. So you can kind of tap into these types of sensations in just regular interactions we have as humans too.
Yeah. So I found it very fascinating. I received Reiki. I came over to tell you about my experience with it because it was very positive. And that's when you introduced me to human design, which it sounds
Yeah.
like through Reiki, you found human design.
Yeah.
So the world of human design is wild to me.
It's
And
wild.
when I did
It's
have
vast.
it's vast. Yes. I
Yes.
had a consultation, Unleash Your Human Design. Is that what it's called with you?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I loved it, but I learned so much. And I feel like a lot of the things that we talked about really just helped me solidify this podcast. Like I was talking about
Right.
how I wanted to start a podcast. It helped me in my business understand why I was drawn to a certain kind of work.
Mhm.
So what is human design? I know there's several different categories that people can kind of fall within. So let's talk through
Yes.
that.
Okay. So human design is a system that is an aggregate, a synthesis of science, like modern science, like quantum
Hmm.
physics, and also ancient wisdom traditions like the Hindi chakra system, astrology, the Chinese I Ching. So it's these ancient intuitive systems that people have been using for thousands of years that now modern science like quantum physics and epigenetics are kind of confirming. So it what it does is it uses your birthplace, time, and date, and it puts it in software that spits you out a visual map of how your energy flows in your body. And so what that can inform you to do is set up ways to make decisions that is how your energy wants to make decisions, to give you more clarity, to give you more confidence, to give you more efficiency and productivity in how you do that. It's also about how you receive opportunities from the universe, from life, from source, how you kind of play with that opportunity, creating your own luck, creating your own streamlining a flow in your life instead of bringing on a lot of resistance. It can really, take away a lot of resistance in your life. And like you said, it really helps you just validate and feel really seen and heard and think, oh my gosh, I thought that was just like a weird quirk of mine. But actually, I'm like beautifully designed to use that energetic characteristic to my advantage to make my life easier and to fulfill my purpose here. So it's a really cool system. It really has a lot of details and can get in the weeds for sure, which is why it's helpful to have an interpreter. I consider myself an interpreter. I know in human design is not a religion. It's not a belief system. It's really just a map. And there's no gurus. So the dude that downloaded this information, he's a Canadian white dude. He went to Ibiza to have this like spiritual experience, really like fasted and did meditation. And all of a sudden his voice came down, he said. And then he started writing all of this system for like 8 days. Really wild that it all worked out, how it was just a beautiful synthesis of systems that are already kind of saying the same thing in different languages, all about energy, really describing how energy flows. And when you use it, it really does make it practical, but you need an interpreter of that. And that's how I consider myself to be. And I love how it's not centralized. I love how, the founder of this is not the guru. There's lots of teachers, there's lots of people that geek out on it and are obsessed with it like me and use it in their mentorship practices and coaching practices and teaching and all of that. But it's really meant to be an experiment. It's called the human design experiment for a reason, because you're meant to get your blueprint, get your map of your energy, play with some of the suggestions, play with some of the principles of it, and try it on for size. And then you get to decide if that's a tool that works for you and resonates with you or not. Because human design describes how specific and diverse we all are in our energy, which means not every tool is going to be for everybody, including human design.
Right.
Yeah.
So When I started telling people about this and that I was going to have you interpret my human design, I grew up Southern Baptist, so I had a lot of people
Hmm.
concerned for me,
Yes, ma'am.
wondering what is wrong with me, if I had lost my way with God, which I am a Christian, I am a believer. And
Uh-huh.
so, help me with that. Like, I wanted to
Yeah.
use this for the tools that you were telling, you're talking
Right.
about here. Is that how it should be interpreted, or is it directly against Christianity?
Well, and I think that's what's beautiful about this. The believer ultimately gets to decide, right?
Hmm.
So I can't tell you necessarily, but here's how I reconcile it with my faith because I am also what I consider to be a Christian. I grew up Methodist, Lutheran, and Episcopal, and have kind of hopped around different Protestant
Mm-hmm.
denominations. And what it seems to me after studying human design and studying the other wisdom traditions from human design, like the chakra system, like the Chinese I Ching, is that we're really saying the same thing using different language in a filter of our cultural context.
Hmm.
So, within the structure of the Christian church, I also was taught, astrology's bad and, playing with like witchy craft stuff is bad. And I'm like, well, I don't consider myself to be like a witch necessarily, but it is a way that maybe we're talking about the same thing. And so I really just have generalized this practice as energy, tapping into God. I use the term God when I'm considering it for myself, but when I'm talking about it to other people, maybe from different wisdom traditions or faith backgrounds, I say things like source or God or life or universe, generalizing so they feel also included, so they can decide what that means to them. And so, personally, because I grew up in a Christian lens, I consider the spirit God within me the Holy Spirit. And so, when I'm using my intuition, I'm considering that to be my Holy Spirit inside of me, as well as my higher self. And in the broader context of being connected to everybody for universal God type of a thing. And so, just like anything, I consider this to be a tool. I am not very dogmatic about it. If something feels resistant to me in my body and doesn't resonate with me about certain parts of human design, I just leave it. I ain't going to use it. So I'm not super dogmatic about that, and I think that's what Jesus, God, is telling us through the Bible and through the Christian tradition is, hey, don't have idols against me. Put astrology on a pedestal, but I also made the planets. I also made the sun. I also made the moon, and guess what? The moon moves your tides. So there's got to be some sort of coordination with that. And I think where we've kind of got it confused or mixed up or scared is having that fear over it. Like, well, what if I do put it on a pedestal? What if you do put it on a pedestal and you think that Reiki is a religion and then you turn your back on our God and go towards, this Reiki thing? And Reiki's not a religion. It's really just another way to say, again, hands on healing. And in a Southern Baptist tradition or in a Protestant tradition, that's very familiar to have like a prayer circle where you put hands on people as you're praying for them. And the healing effects of that. You can feel the healing effects of that. So that's how I reconcile this with me. I really feel like it's a linguistic difference, a cultural difference, than a real true difference. And in my perspective, it does not cancel out my Christian upbringing. In fact, it gives me more confidence in the things that I've taken from my Christian upbringing as truth for me. It's really just solidified that way and just allowed me a more inclusive way to talk about faith and energy in a way that feels good for people that aren't just Christians.
Mm. That's a very beautiful way to put it. And I love that. So when we went through my human design, one of the things that I was very surprised about is I feel like for, I don't know, all of my life, anger has been something that I feel like I needed to suppress. I needed to push away. Like, why am I so angry? Like, that was something that always came up for me. And when you were reading my human design, that word popped up many times.
It
And for
just gave me chills
me,
again.
for me, that was very eye-opening because we talked about using it. And this is a tool that I have taken from human design, is that I need to be using it as a guidepost.
Yes.
When I see that anger, feel that anger, like it's something, it's not something that I need to suppress. It's something that I need to listen to.
Oh, yes.
So
Ooh,
I found that so amazing that you don't know that about me. You wouldn't
right.
know that about me. And when you
No.
did my human design reading, that's something that popped up. Like, how
Right.
cool is that?
Well, that's the thing. And you can take the shame off yourself, right? So
Mm,
thinking about a broader lens of anger in women are not really allowed to be angry.
mhm.
Or show any emotions, right? Like we were a child of the 80s, and that generation of upbringing is not like it is now, where you're kind of working with your kids on emotionally regulating and seeing the benefits
Mhm,
of that. That was just not something that we were experiencing. Most of us, I would say, we're not experiencing that. So along with you, I'm a fiery person. I've got a lot of fire in me, and I put a lot of shame on myself and about those fiery things. But in human design, what's beautiful about it is you are a manifester energy type. That's really just describing how your aura or your energy field is flowing. And the not self theme. So in human design, we use our emotions, like you said, as guideposts. So when you're feeling really peaceful about something, that is aligned for you, meaning that your energy wants to express that way. When you go to bed feeling very peaceful about how you've spent your energy, time, money, um, that means you're very aligned. Your energy is feeling like, this is it. When you experience patterns of anger, it's an invitation to get curious. And this is anger specifically for a manifestor aura type. So it is interesting that anger, that specific frequency or that specific emotion, is so poignant for you, because it is for a manifestor. Because if you're experiencing patterns of anger, it means that something about that is not aligned, or something about that is not the way your energy wants to express. And it doesn't mean you cut off everything. It means get curious, right? It's like, okay, well, what part of this is making me angry? Is it the schedule? Is it the people I'm working with? Is it how someone is bulldozing my boundaries? Is it the time of day? So you really get curious about what part of that is bringing anger. And then when you find that out, you can figure out, okay, well, what's the next step then? How can I remediate some of this friction and resistance to make my life easier and to bring some of that
mhm.
peace back?
Yeah. The other thing that we talked about, or that kept coming up, that I found very eye-opening, was creativity. It was all
Yeah,
through
it's all
my
in your chart.
all
Yeah.
in my chart. And you point blank asked me, like, how are you expressing yourself creatively?
Yeah.
Because you've got to let this out.
Yeah.
And that was a really tough question for me to answer, because what I do for a living, the business that I've created, like, I am a creator, but I'm creating it for other people. I'm not kind of doing it for
Hmm.
my own well-being.
Right.
And that was something I found very interesting. But also, you asked, is it writing? Is it this? And among those things that you were listing off, you said, is it a podcast? I remember
You're like,
crying. I
wait a
cried. Like,
second.
I
Yeah.
cried, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, this is my sign. I've been talking about this, wanting to do this. Here it
Yeah.
is. Like, I need to release some creativity, and this is a way that I can express myself. Um,
Yes.
so those were probably the two main things that I took away from my human design. And I feel like those were huge aha moments for me.
Yes.
And so I just think I still am, like, baffled about how it works. And
Right.
it's amazing. I think it's an amazing tool to help you.
Well, and you didn't learn anything new with your human design
Right.
necessarily. It really just shined a light on the parts that you already knew that were in your heart. And it just
Mm,
gave you the confidence and the boldness and the unapologeticness to say, oh my gosh, this has been in my heart. This is a sign, a recognition that my energy wants to express this way to fulfill my purpose. I mean, that is also part of your purpose on earth in your human design, is to make an environment that feels really good, real safe, really welcoming, so you can express your creativity. That's part of your essence of how you operate and everything you do. So imagine what happens if you don't do that. Of course, frustration is going to build up. Of course, anger is going to build up. And that's going to manifest, as we know in science and research, that's going to manifest as physical ailments. So it really can be super impactful to release some of these energies and channel them in ways that they really want to express for your overall well-being, yes, but also your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, and your career. Like, look at you. And
yes.
the topic of your podcast cracks me up too, because it's like, it's your purpose. Like, I don't know how much you actually looked at the specificity of your human design when you created this podcast. I know it was like a catapult for you to just have
Mhm.
the confidence to just get her out there.
Right.
But looking at your actual purpose, it is to create a warm, safe environment, a well-being place so you can express your creativity in the world. And that is exactly what you did. You have, you've switched lifestyle and work on its
Mm-hmm.
head, and now you get to create this podcast. So it's really beautiful. And it's just really a confidence booster. And so it's my very, very, absolute, very favorite thing to do is to sit with people like you and celebrate you and highlight all your gifts so you can make the difference in the world that you came here to make, because everyone has these great purposes that go beyond just them and what their job is. It's really just the essence of who you
Right.
are. And to celebrate you that way, and my other clients, I mean, it is helping me serve my purpose that's in my human design as well. So it's beautiful. It feels like such a
Yes.
gift. It feels so compassionate. It just feels like, talking about in our Christian lens, like doing God's work. It makes me feel like it's
Mm.
God's path for me, even though I had to expand my mind to what that would be and accept the tools as well. I can't see any other way now. It's just so beautiful.
That it is. That's the only way to describe it. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
I so much appreciate it. So if someone wanted to get a human reading design or learn about their human design, how can they do
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, well, they can DM me on Instagram. That's probably where I'm the most active, is on Instagram. We are Crafting Good. That's my company, Crafting Good with 1G. And you can DM me over there or go to the website, craftinggood.com, again, 1G. And you can purchase right there. You can schedule from the website. So find a convenient place or time for you to do it. And what happens is when you're checking out, you put in your birth date, time, and place. You schedule your time. And what you're scheduling for is our 90-minute Unleash session where we are on Zoom together and I get to interpret the chart. And in the meantime, I create a digital chart that has very, a lot of descriptions about all these different components of your chart and characteristics of you and your energy. And then we come together on that Zoom and unleash it. And
Yes.
it's really hard to look at things in a different way after
Mm-hmm.
that.
So I noticed that you've taken a pause on Instagram. You'll have to tell me what that looks like, what it is.
Yeah. So what the package is called Quiet Quitting Instagram. So
Mm.
I'm not pausing Instagram, but I'm being very intentional about how I'm channeling my energy through that platform. So it's another way that I am using my human design. I love Instagram. I've always loved it as soon as it came out. And when I started a business, I love connecting with people on there and messages and in stories and all of that. But the grid gives me so much stress. I am not a
Okay.
content creator.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
in that way, I don't love graphic design. I like a reel. I like a reel, but I get really stressed about the image of my grid, and the way it was did not reflect the business. It did not reflect me individually. And so I met these two beautiful professionals, a graphic designer and a digital marketing specialist and strategist, and they teamed up together to have this package to Quiet Quit. So they go through all my offers, my mission, vision, who I am, what the purpose of everything is, and create this beautiful 12 image or video or audio grid that is stagnant on my grid, so that when people go to my grid, they see all my goods. They can see the offers, they can see the podcasts I've been on, they can see who I am, what my values are, what customers say about our work together. I have stories on there and highlights that also highlight some of these same things. And then what I can do is spend my time and energy doing the things I actually like to do on Instagram, which is post stories, do a reel every once in a while, be in my DMs. So I am intentionally channeling my energy in those avenues, and then creating a very beautiful, that reflects the company very well, a very beautiful grid that acts as kind of like another homepage, really. So when
Mm.
people go over to We Are Crafting Good and they look at the grid, they're like, oh, wow, because it all goes together really nicely. And then you click on the individual posts and it gives you a lot more context about what the theme of that post is, but then it all works together. I'm obsessed with it. I feel like 1,000-pound weight has been lifted off my shoulder, and now I'm free to create content in the
Mm.
avenues that really light me up instead of drain my energy. And I was not showing up on the grid like I wanted to. I should post this
Mm.
because I haven't posted in a while type of thing. And that's not the energy I want to put out. So
No.
this freed me up from that energetic strain and resistance and allows me to flow it through the channels that I love.
Wow. That's amazing. And I feel like that's where a lot of people do get caught up is they get that
Yeah.
stress, that overwhelm, and they can't get past it. And so they just don't do it at all. And that's not
Right.
the way to go either.
No.
Yeah. Awesome. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
And you'll have to get me that information so I can at least link it below in case anybody's
Oh, I
interested.
definitely will. Yes, I will.
So, okay. So I normally wrap up these interviews with a couple of questions. We talked about, my podcast name, Content to Create. So what leaves you content? Or we can flip it because other people have asked it or liked it asked this way. What leaves you restless?
Ooh. Well, what's funny about that, when you ask the first question and they go hand in hand, I, of course, am thinking through my human design lens.
Yeah.
I'm a generator or a type, and my guardrail emotions are satisfaction and frustration, which is basically the same frequency as contentment and restlessness,
Mm,
right? So I think when I'm in alignment, when I am choosing what lights me up to spend my energy on, I feel very content. I feel very happy and satisfied. When I say no to things that are not for me,
mhm,
as scary as that was when I started doing it,
mhm.
I feel very content. I feel very happy when I do that. Powerful no's and being intentional about where and how I channel my energy definitely leaves me content.
Awesome. That's a very cool answer. You could also read my podcast as content to create. So,
Yes.
playing into that, leaning into that, what is one piece of content that you consume that you want to share with others?
Oh my gosh, podcasts. I am obsessed with podcasts. I love them. I
Mhm,
love being on them. I love listening to them. It's all I listen to. When I'm
mhm.
walking, I'll throw some music in there every once in a while, but honestly, it's like on my podcast rotation. So I do love a podcast and I love a meme. Like I am
Okay.
one of these
Mhm.
people that are like sending my best friend memes all day. That's like a love language now. So it's like, a bulkier content and also like a little spiel of like, I see you and this is hilarious and you need to laugh.
Yes.
So
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you, Rachel. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate you walking us through Reiki energy and human design.
anytime. Yes, it's my pleasure, Megan. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this experience and for the time you gave me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me today on the Content to Create podcast. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message. You can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I have both linked in the show notes. See you next time.